John here from NoJokeNHL, here with our daily report, day 3 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. This is Thursday, March the 2nd, 2013. We had 3 games last night, so let's do the recap. I actually did a long report. It was about 21 minutes. Went in depth to the games last night, and then went in depth with the plays and some strategies. And lo and behold, YouTube only allows me to do 15 minutes. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to split up the reports, do a recap report earlier in the day, probably in the morning, probably by like 11 Eastern, have that report done, and then have the daily plays, the coming up report done by 3 o'clock Eastern, just so I can, get into more stuff and, not have to rush through and miss information. For this report as the last one, I'm going to be like kind of clipping off some of the things that I talk about, the highlights from what I did talk about that hit the editing room floor, so to speak. All right, so last night we had 3 games. Boston Bruins thumping the Toronto Maple Leafs 4-1 in their game 1. Of course, Toronto at plus 160. Our play did not come in at all. Looked a little interesting for about 5 minutes in the first period after James Van Riemsdyk, with 1:54 into the game, scores a power play goal. But Boston quickly, put 4 more unanswered goals into the net. They basically doubled up their shot production, 40 shots on goal to 20 for Toronto, and that wasn't even the whole story. Basically, Boston had 16 more shots, 16 of their shots blocked, and 15 missed the net. So as opposed to the 20 shots on goal for Toronto, and 8 being blocked and 5 missed the net. So basically 33 total offensive attempts at the net to score. So that kind of explains why they only scored 1 goal. The only thing that really saved them was Reimer, who stopped 10% of the shots, allowed only 10% of the shots to be goals. He took 40 shots, gave up 4 goals, so 90% save percentage. But that was the only highlight there. Even the offensive numbers for Toronto, like I said, Van Riemsdyk had 5 shots on goal. Only 3 other Leafs had 2 shots on goal. So definitely not going to buy in, as I described after the first round. That was really a lousy defeat. Their defense looked horrible. Boston skated up and down and did whatever they wanted at will. So definitely not going to re-buy in. I'm just going to ride out that series play. And if they show up again like that in Game 2, I'm probably going to start lining my birdcage with that ticket. On to the next game from last night. Pittsburgh 5, New York Islanders 0. Another losing selection for me. I had New York Islanders over their team total of 2.5, and 0 didn't quite make it. And but basically when I look at these numbers, you look at the shots on goal, 26 shots each, and so that right there, you're like, oh, Pittsburgh must have just put some easy pucks in the net, and that certainly was the case, as Nabokov gives up 4 goals and 15 shots and gets run off, and then Poulin comes in, gives up 1 out of 11, so he stopped the sieve. But basically Nabokov got this one off to the races. But when you look at the offensive numbers for the Islanders, their top line really didn't do anything. Tavares, no shots on goal, 1 shot attempt blocked, and 2 shots missed, so he didn't even get a shot on goal. So Pittsburgh very good at shutting down the top line of the Islanders, and in essence it shut them all down. Like I said, the easy goals going in certainly could have deflated them. So I think the angle for me is, I'm not going to say the Islanders are going to be competitive and even take some games here, but I certainly don't see them scoring 0, and I think the over would be in line here. Because like I said, when you look at their shots on goal, blocked shots by the Penguins, and then missed shots by the Islanders, they put 62 offensive attempts up, and so that's an awful lot of shots. Now granted, I'm looking at the numbers on paper. I'm not looking at the quality of shots. I'd have to go back and re-look at the tape to be sure. But Pittsburgh, 26 shots on goal. They had 12 attempts blocked, and then they missed 10 shots. So the Islanders certainly got more offensive chances, if you will, by those numbers, but didn't get it done. So like I said, maybe look to go over their team total again at some point, or take the over in that game. The final game, San Jose Sharks take it to the Vancouver Canucks 3-1 last night, 1-1 after the second period, and then San Jose scores 2 unanswered in the third. Story of this game, goaltending. Niemi basically keeping Vancouver out. Vancouver put 30 shots on goal, 28 shots for the Sharks. but they definitely had a lot more offensive attempts too, blocked and missed shots and things like that. So the story of the game, like I said, Luongo versus Niemi. Niemi's certainly up to the task, as he usually is, versus these Canucks. So very interesting. The Sharks can certainly play defense. They showed that last night, and like I said, with Niemi and net, they look pretty good in this first round series. So kudos to everybody that jumped on them. Like I said, I was not a Shark believer. I certainly wasn't a Vancouver believer for sure, but I kind of favored them a little bit. But glad I didn't get down on that. And like I said, for all you Sharks backers, kudos. They looked pretty good last night, and you should be pretty much in the driver's seat, for, at least at this point of the series. Of course, everything changes in the Stanley Cup playoffs from day to day. On to tonight's action, we have the Ottawa Senators taking on the Montreal Canadiens. The Canadiens, a minus 155 favorite, come back on the Ottawa Senators, plus 135. The story of this series, I think, is going to be the over-under. Ottawa and under have been synonymous with cashing tickets all year long, and but you have to figure that in the playoffs, certainly the books are going to be on that, so you're going to be paying a premium. This under 5 minus 135, minus 140, under 4.5 is plus 140. Little bit of a low price for that proposition. Like I said, I know that it's a likely under, but you know the books are definitely making you pay a premium. You're not sneaking up on them and playing the under here. They're going to make you pay the premium for that, and plus 140 is really a lousy proposition for a game to go under 4. Basically, you can have the shutout 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 4-0, and then 2-1 and 3-1, and that's it. And those are all the scenarios that cover under 4.5 cashing. So you do the math. Most NHL games don't fit that criteria. I'm not saying that this one doesn't, but for me, that prop has to pay at least plus 170, plus 180 for me to even begin to think getting down on under 4.5. And playing under 5 at that juice, like I said, is just crazy. You're playing right into the book's hands because it's either going to fall on the 5 or you're going to cash in one of that crazy scenario. And if you're, like I said, if you're thinking of cashing, then you might as well get down on the 4.5. Playing for the safety of that 5, you're just really paying a huge premium. It's really not worth it, in my opinion. On to Washington Capitals at the Rangers. Reports on Twitter at this time saying that the Rangers are going to be out a few key players, Stahl, Klo, and one other. So the Rangers not coming in here 100%. I'm not necessarily putting much weight into that. I mean, it is going to be bad for them at missing players. But I look for the Capitals to really come out here. We talked about it in the preview video. I think these Capitals have grown up from last year, in which they made it all the way to the second round and forced these Rangers to a 7th game decision. And so I look for the Capitals to have grown up from that experience. Certainly their offensive punch way more in line than with what it was last year. I mean, basically they had 0 offensive punch. They basically just went to a New York Ranger type style of blocking shots and things like that to get by Boston in 7 games in overtime, and then they forced the Rangers to 7 games. But it was just basically because both teams were constantly playing low scoring games back and forth, and pucks were bouncing both ways. So in this series, I look for the Capitals to come out a little offensively. The minus 1.5 tonight on Capitals, pretty juicy. Minus 245 this morning. I got in a little bit on that. I think it's around minus 230 now as the money's coming in with the reports of these Rangers players being out. So some money's coming in on the Capitals. Certainly Capitals money line is a solid play, and I'm going to be on that for sure. I'm also going to be on, like I said, the minus 1.5 as like I said, I look for the Capitals to put some pucks in the net in this series. I mean, I know New York plays that blocky style of hockey, where block shots, and we see these numbers all the time, and they increase in the playoffs. So this doesn't lend to wide open style games, so I definitely would probably be more invested in the money line for sure, and then sprinkle on the profits with that. With the minus 1.5, because like I said, minus 1.5 doesn't occur too often in the playoffs. Even when a team gets a 3-1, 4-1 lead in the regular season, you'd be toasting at the bar like, woo, we got this one covered. In the playoffs, backdoor covers like that. Once you get a 4-1 lead, you're not looking to expand that lead. You're not going to be taking chances on offense. You're basically going to be trying to shut them down. So you have a 3-goal cushion. You're trying to shut them down. Oftentimes, like I said, backdoor covers occur. So buyer beware on minus 1.5 in the playoffs. The next game on the schedule, St. Louis Blues hosting the Kings for Game 2, and reports on Twitter as well saying that the Kings are shifting their lines and trying to do some things, and that bodes well for the St. Louis Blues because basically the Blues took it to the Kings in Game 1. Mike Quick. I keep getting these people from different sports mixed up. Jonathan Quick of the Kings, outstanding in Game 1. If he wasn't there, basically this would have been a 3-0, 4-0 Blues victory. They put tons of pressure on the net, and he was just absolutely insane, keeping him in the one-goal game and then allowing them to them to tie the game and force overtime. Of course, they lost in overtime. Price is about the same. Actually, a little more money's coming in on St. Louis later in the afternoon. The series price still kind of favoring the Kings. I think there's still some Kings money out there. Maybe it's because it's on the West Coast. A lot of Vegas money. People playing the Kings, but like I said, I definitely like where the Blues are sitting here. I think they realize where they're at. I don't think they're going to take their foot off the gas. I think they're going to keep the offensive punch coming, and really the ball is in the Kings' court. I mean, Jonathan Quick is going to have to play that style of game from Game 1 if they're going to stay in this series. And the Kings are going to have to somehow, with this line shifting, either come up with more of an offensive punch or come up with at least a decent defensive edge to shut this Blues team down, who outshot them by almost 2-1. All right, final game on the card, Anaheim Ducks hosting the Detroit Red Wings for Game 2. Same line as the first game, minus 140 on the Ducks, plus 120 on the Red Wings. Rob Pizzola tweeted out, he's not buying the Detroit Kool-Aid, drinking the New York, I can't talk today, drinking the Detroit Kool-Aid, and I would have to agree. They didn't look that great in Game 1. The Ducks pretty much did what they will. It looks like Hiller is absolutely one tough cookie. A lot of action in front of him. I saw his mask and helmet come flying off a couple times, so he's not easily rattled. He played an excellent game, and so I kind of look for more of the same here with the Ducks. I'm not going to make an individual play on that. Like I said, for tonight, I'm probably going to play the Blues. The Blues on the money line. I'm also going to have the Capitals money line. Capitals minus 1.5, and I think also on the Blues, I'm going to take the Blues first period over 1.5. Because that was so close to cashing. I think it's a very juicy plus 155. I'm going to see if I can get a profit between games 1 and 2 on that move. So that brings me to the end of today's report. Like I said, from now on I'm going to be splitting the report up, doing a morning report on the recap for the last night's games, and then doing the talk about that night's card later on in the afternoon. Like I said, to split this up and we can get more information out there. All right, everybody. So NoJokeNHL, tell everybody YouTube, NoJokeNHL on Twitter, and until tomorrow, let's make some money.